Hello everyone, I'm Gary Williams. This is Ramblings of a Sysadmin, where I have a cup of tea, I have my lab, and today I will be rambling on about Zerologon, so I hope you enjoy. Hello everyone, and yeah, it's that time again when Microsoft have announced another series of vulnerabilities that are being exploited out in the wild. This one goes by the name of Zerologon, and I'd be very surprised if you've not heard about it, but what I thought it would be nice to do is to take you through testing your domain controllers to see if they are vulnerable. What I won't be doing in this video is going through how to exploit it or anything like that. There is an absolutely brilliant article on exploiting it. I've started going through it. It's quite lengthy. It involves tools like Mimikatz, so you really should be monitoring for that kind of thing. And I do want to sit down and try it out and see if I can exploit a domain controller. But let's take a quick look at how we can test the domain controllers to see if they're vulnerable or not. Now for this test, what I've done is I've got a domain controller I've spun up in VMware, labdco2. There is also a labdco1. Now these haven't been patched. These are effectively brand new, fresh build domain controllers. And to make things interesting, DCO1 is 2008. There is a second part to the Zerologon, which is an enforcement mode. I want to see if Windows 2008 can handle that enforced mode that the Zerologon patches give us the option to enable. Of course, I do hope that people aren't running Windows 2008, but this is the real world. There are going to be people out there that are running it. Budgets are a thing, especially now with pandemics going on. Anyway, enough of all of that. Let's go and test to see if these domain controllers are vulnerable. Both of them should be. I'll start with the labdco1. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get its host name and its IP address. Both of these are required to run the Zerologon tester Python script. What I've also done to make life a bit easier for myself is I've created this container that I can download. Now this container just takes the necessary components for running the Zerologon Python script and the script itself and just bundles them up into a container. Basically what this means is I don't have to install Python on the server. I can just download the container and everything is there for me. Now what I'm going to do, I've got a handy host that has Docker running on it. Docker pull gdwnet Zerologon. That'll take a few seconds to download. By the way, if anyone is interested in how I created this, I'm more than happy to go through the process of putting it together. It's not that difficult, it's just a few lines in a Docker file and compile and away you go. And that's my container downloaded. There it is. All I need to do to test my domain controller is run it, give it the name of the domain controller, which as I was saying earlier is this labdco1 IP 10251.1.80. So it is labdco1 10251.1.80. Off it goes. Now this container, as I say, has all of the necessary Python bits and pieces in it, and it's got the Python script in there, the zero tester script. And as we can see, success. DC can be fully compromised by a Zerologon attack. Let's run the same attack against my DCO2. So as you can see, the name for this one, labdco2, and this is 10251.1.82. So labdco2.82, run it. And once again, it can be compromised by a Zerologon attack. So no surprise, these are fresh build domain controllers. Both of them are vulnerable to an attack. Okay, let's do some patching. So what you can see here is the Microsoft Update Catalog. Now every security article that Microsoft produces will have links to the update catalog, and it's from here you can get all of the patches. In this case, I'm just looking at the security only patch, so that doesn't include all the other bits and pieces that some of their patches have. This is just the fix for this particular issue. I've got the security update, and obviously all I need to do is install it. A reboot is required. So if you've got a single domain controller, you really shouldn't have a single domain controller, but if you do have one, this is going to need to be done out of hours. Reboot. The whole process shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes, but obviously it's going to depend on the speed of your server, how long it takes to do its BIOS checks and all of that. This is a really small VM, so it's going to take me about 5 minutes for this patch to install. And there we go. So now I just need to do another test. So back over to my Docker machine, and I'm going to run the exact same command I've run previously, which is my container against the labdco2. Give it the name, the IP address. This time, this is going to take a hell of a lot longer. I will completely admit I don't fully know what it's doing. I don't understand the code, and I will go through the blog article that's been written about this. But this tester will go off and it will do a bunch of tests against the domain controller. If the patch is installed, it will come back and tell you, because the attack will fail. And if the patch isn't installed, as you saw earlier, it will tell you that it's vulnerable. But I found this a really, really good way of just being able to fire up this container as and when I need it, run a test, delete it, job done. It's taking a lot longer, so that's a really good sign. It's most likely going to show that it's patched. And as you saw earlier, I only deployed a security patch. I didn't do the full roll-up. Now, it's in the lab. I'm not overly bothered about it. But again, patch everything. There's some nasty shit out there. There's another video I'll be doing after this about the bad neighbor vulnerability that's just come out. So patch everything. And it's going, and I'm sure you're all getting bored. But you can see how much longer this is taking. That is a good sign. Now, obviously, there's ways of cheating with this. I could put the firewall on and it would block it, but it's kind of pointless. You can run the test for yourself. But there you go. Target is probably patched. Now, it's going to say probably because, as I say, you could put the firewall on. There could be other stuff that's preventing it. There's likely systems out there, maybe Darktrace, things like that, that could look for this type of attack traffic and dynamically block it. But you should always patch. What about operating systems that are not officially supported by Microsoft because they're end of life? Things like Windows 2008 R2. Well, this is why I do have a 2008 domain controller in the lab. And as you can see, there is a 2008 patch. But there's a problem with it. And let me show you what that problem is. This is the Zerologon patch for Windows 2008 R2. So let's give this a go. So the installation is complete, everything appears to be working, and it looks like the patch has been successful. But watch what happens when I hit restart now. There goes the patch. Again, everything's looking normal. Configuring all the updates. You've probably seen this on many servers. And this is what I wanted you to see. Installing this update is going to fail every single time. And the reason is actually quite simple. This is a Windows 2008 R2 install, but it's a standard install. But it's a standard license. And what I mean by that is I don't have the ESU license. Now, ESU is the extended security updates, and if you don't have that license, that patch will never work. So it doesn't matter that Zerologon is a really, really nasty vulnerability, and the fact it's being exploited right now. Microsoft just want their money for the ESU. Now, in fairness to Microsoft, they've been pushing the decommissioning of Windows 2008 for some time. But even so, be aware you cannot install this update unless you've subscribed to the ESU package. Now, the ESU package is a real pain to get to. If you want to get to it, you have to go through Azure and you have to click a couple of buttons and allocate a license to your machine. The cost of the licensing is something like 75% of your standard license cost. Now, I don't know if that's per license or if it just activates the program. I didn't look into it any further than that, but it is expensive, but you do need it if you want to install this patch and other patches now that Windows 2008 is end of life. So certainly something to be aware of and something to hopefully drive the final removal of Windows 2008 from your estate if it's not already been done. The very last thing I want to cover for this Zerologon issue is this blog article here, and I'll include this link in the description and things down below. It's a 17-minute read. It is lengthy. Now, I've not gone through it all, but it's very detailed, and it covers all sorts of things about what Zerologon is, how it works, how to attack, what to expect, what it will do. If you have any interest in security and you're curious about how this stuff works, just have a read. This is amazing. Look how detailed it is. Lists everything that's vulnerable: 2003, 2012 R2, 2016, 2019. Obviously, 2012, 2016, 2019 have patches that are freely available. 2008 R2 and 2008, as I've said, need the ESU. 2003, 2004, I think 2004 is one of the SPS versions. There's no patches for those. Pretty certain there's no patches for SPS, but worth looking into. The last thing I'll mention is this registry key they're talking about here. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I want to do a few more tests with it, but just bear in mind that the patch is effectively part 1. Part 2 is setting this registry key. Now, Microsoft are planning on releasing another patch. I believe it's February of 2021, which will enforce this. Now, they did say they were going to do something very similar with LDAP-S, but then COVID hit and they didn't seem to follow through on that, so I've not heard anything about it. Will they push this patch out in February of 2021? Who knows? Worth keeping an eye on anyway. It's something to be aware of. But what I will do a future video on this registry key, and if it's compatible with 2008, because I'm curious about that myself, I will be setting it up in the lab. So watch out for that. There's also some really good details here on detection response monitoring for attacks. There are these event IDs, worth looking out for them. If you have event log monitoring in place, and you should, worth looking out. If you don't have event log monitoring, there are ways of looking for these event logs and sending out an email from the servers themselves. So you could set this up on each individual domain controller. There's stuff I think is in Task Manager where you can run a script and it will email out based on an event ID. Security issue is a serious one. Patch if you can, decommission if you can't, or upgrade or do something. And if you're interested, do have a read of this. As I say, this blog article is absolutely insanely amazing. It goes through everything. If you want to have a play around with it, it tells you how to do it, but be aware, it will break a domain. Without backups of machine passwords, you are going to be in a mess. So do be careful with that. The container that I've created does not make any changes. It just scans and says if you're vulnerable or not, but it will not break your domain. Believe me, I know this for a fact. I have run this on several domains, no issues. Anyway, that's everything from me for this video. I hope you've enjoyed. If you found this useful, interesting, and all of that, please do drop a like, a comment, and subscribe. And thanks very much for your time.